Imagine you want to buy an apartment and find out what comprises a good deal so that you don't end up paying a lot more. One obvious thing to do would be to look at the historical prices of all the flats sold in that particular locality, society, or area. Next step would be to create a decision tree to summarize the average selling price given the real estate requirements. You can make one catalog chart to estimate whether the listed price of the flat that you are seriously considering is negotiable or not. You can make a different decision tree based on different ideas. It's all about the perspective that is founded, structured, and representing information. Now, this is where the random forest regression algorithm comes into picture and works on what is termed as insight of the crowd, wherein it takes multiple and different regression trees into the picture and chooses the best one by voting, where each tree is made to predict the estimated price of the flat price based on the decision criteria they were made or picked up with. So, a formal definition would be it is a machine learning technique used to solve classification and regression problem by using ensemble learning methodology. Ensemble learning, in simple term, is a methodology that combines multiple classifiers for providing solutions to complex problems. It consists of numerous decision tree, and the term forest used in this algorithm is trained through bagging or bootstrap aggregation. So if you're interested to learn more about it, stay tuned and learn all that you can about random forest regression. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any new update or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoy this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video for any query or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments.
Hello everybody. Today I'll be talking about the topic random forest regression. So let me first get started with the agenda. So the agenda here incorporates a lot of topics. We'll be starting off by understanding the introduction, what about random forest regression. There would be some amount of overview and a little bit of history involved with it. Further which I'll start talking about what is this random forest regression. Then I'll compare random forest regression algorithm with few very famous algorithms like linear regression and logistic regression. Further which, I'll be talking about the working of random forest regression algorithm, and then I'll be talking about the applications. What are the fields where this algorithm is being applied on a mass basis? Then I'll be showing you a small hands-on with a data set. Then I'll move on and show you a small coding hands-on using random forest regression algorithm. And we'll end this presentation by summarizing all the points. Now let's move ahead and start with our first topic, introduction and overview. Now we all know that a decision tree is a very easily understandable and interpreted algorithm. Hence, the downside to that is whenever you're trying to train your model or your model is trying to learn certain features in the training set, a single tree is never enough. On the contrary, this is where a random forest tree-based algorithm comes into picture that uses the quality features of multiple decision trees for making decisions. So what does a random forest do? It basically incorporates multiple decision tree instead of keeping one single tree in hand. I'll be talking about what is a random forest regression algorithm at stretch in the upcoming topics. Now let us understand where does the name come from. Hence the name random forest, because here the term random exists due to the reasoning that this algorithm is a forest of randomly created decision trees. Now let's move ahead and try to understand why should one use random forest regression, right? So there are a lot of reasons which are related to that. Firstly, it takes significantly less training time compared to its peer algorithms. Second point is it always predicts output with very high accuracy. It has always proven to be very effective and efficient for large data sets. Now, moving on with the next point, let me give you a small example here. Suppose you are an analyst who's working with a very large data set, and that data set has a lot of missing and null values. Regular day in the life of a data scientist or an analyst, right? So what happens is these missing values are not going to affect your accuracy rate. The algorithm will still show the accuracy as intact. If there are more trees, it will never allow overfitting of trees in the model. And the last point is This is such a versatile algorithm that it is used for both classification and regression tasks. Now let's move ahead and understand about the assumptions. Random forest incorporates multiple decision trees to predict the class of the dataset. Now what do I mean by that? I'll be talking about it when I talk about what is random forest regression. Now what generally happens is there would be cases, there would be ideal scenarios where a few decision trees would give you the exact correct output while the others would not. And this is where the two assumptions comes into picture. There have to be some actual values in the feature variable of the dataset so that the classifier can predict accurate results rather than a guessed result. And there should be a very low correlation between predictions from each tree. So these are the two most important assumptions, guys, that you have to keep in mind while you're applying random forest regression algorithm. Now let me move on to the next topic where I'll be talking about what is random forest regression in its entirety. I'll be explaining you random forest regression through an example. That's the reason why you can see understanding random forest regression in layman's term. Now imagine you want to buy an apartment. Let's say you want to buy a flat in an apartment and you want to find out what comprises a good deal so that you don't end up paying a lot more after being stuck with a lot of conversations with different kinds of brokers. One obvious thing to do here would be to look at the historical prices of all the flats sold in that particular locality, society, or even area, right? That's a very logical thing to do. Another step would be to create a decision tree. Now, let's say you want to look at it from an analyst perspective. So what you're trying to do is you're creating a decision tree to summarize the average selling price given the current real estate requirements, right? And then you made one catalog chart, or let's say you made one list chart to estimate whether the listed prices of the flat that you are seriously considering is even negotiable or not. So all of this can be a part of this decision tree. So this basically starts with here, you are trying to understand whether the flat that you are trying to buy, whether that comes under a posh locality or not, because you would go for a society or a locality that is posh, that is good. So if it is in a posh locality, then, and the tree says yes, then you move to the next part. Is it a 2 BHK? Because your requirement is you want a 2 BHK flat, which is good and spaced out. Now, if it is a 2 BHK, then what is the monthly rental that you're supposed to pay? Are you paying 40,000 rupees monthly? And if it's not a 2 BHK, then you end up paying 20,000 rupees monthly, right? Now let's go back to the first part again. We are talking about posh locality, right? So if the area is not posh, if the apartment or the flat that you're looking for does not fall under the posh locality, then the next obvious question would be, does it have other amenities? By other amenities, what I mean is, does it have a clubhouse? Does it have a gym? Does it have a small park where people can walk or chit chat or talk in the evening, right? So if it has other amenities, does it have a gated society, right? Does it have a watchman or a guard who looks after it for 24 hours? So if the answer is yes, then probably you would end up paying somewhere around, let's say, 15,000 rupees monthly. And even if the answer is no, then you're paying 10,000 rupees monthly, right? Now let's move on to the next part. So the previous chart that you saw is basically representing a decision tree in the form of yes or no answers. This also led us from the description of the flat to its average historical price. So this basically gave us a whole idea, how the description of the flat would be and how that description is going to affect the average price too. Now one can use this decision tree to predict the flat's expected price based on the parameters that I had just defined by building that decision tree, right? However, this is just one of the trees that you have come up with. Different people can come up with different trees. Even you as a single individual can come up with multiple trees like this, having multiple ideas in your mind. This is just one of those trees. For example, a different tree would look like this. Now, other requirement for you would be, is your flat big? So you are looking out. Now, your requirement is that you want a flat that is somewhere around 1300 or 1400 square feet, right? So that is one of your primary requirement. So that's the reason why your decision tree starts with this question: is the flat that you're looking for, is it big enough or not? If it's big enough, your next obvious question is, when was this flat built? So you're very curious and you want to understand how old is the property that you're going to buy or rent a flat in, right? Then let's say you get an answer that, so let's say the parameters are laid out this way. if the property is very old, let's say if the property is around 20, 30, 40 years old, the price of the flats also increases. If the property is not very old, then the price of the flat is also very low. So we have just kept the variables this way. Now, if the flat was built somewhere around, let's say 30 years ago, then the price is again 40,000 rupees monthly is what they are asking you for. If it's a very new property, then they are asking you to pay around 20,000 rupees monthly. However, in a real life scenario, the vice versa of this takes place, right? So if you have a new property or a new apartment, they basically ask you for, 40,000 or 50,000 rupees monthly, because everything is well set up, everything is well established, and everything is new. However, if you have a very old property, then generally you end up paying less, because most of the services are not as efficient as a newly built property or an apartment. So it depends on you what are the variables you're choosing, right? Now let's go back to the last part again. Let's go back to how we started building this decision tree. Now your question was, is the flat big, right? So if you say that, the flat is not that big, then the next question is it a studio flat? You can have different questions like that. Now, it's not that this is an entirely different decision tree that you're trying to build. So you can have different parameters that way. This is a new individual, or you are again the same individual who's building a new decision tree based on different parameters. So if the flat is not big, then your next question is, okay, I'll not even talk about a 1 BHK or a 2 BHK. Just give me an answer. Is it a studio flat? So if it is yes, then they're asking you to pay around 15,000 rupees monthly. And if the answer is no, then you end up paying around 10,000 rupees. In general, you don't have any flat in real life which is smaller than a studio flat, right? A studio flat is also called as a RK. So anything which is smaller than that, in ideal life, ideal case scenario, doesn't even exist. So we can just change this flat part to 1 BHK. So let's say, is it a 1 BHK flat? So if the answer is yes, then you are asked to pay 15,000 rupees monthly. And if this is not a 1 BHK flat, then they are asking you to pay 10,000 rupees monthly, which is for a RK or a studio flat, right? So let's move on to our next part. So this previous chart that you saw is representing a decision tree, which is valid. Decision tree, guys, is also valid, but here you have laid out entirely different criteria, entirely different parameters, right? So it's all about the perspective, right? It's always about the perspective from which you're trying to build a decision tree, which is founded, structured, and also representing information which is absent in the first tree. Because all of us at the end of the day are humans, right? We cannot really put on all the information in one decision tree. So if your perspective changes, if your requirement changes, if your criteria change, you build an entirely new decision tree, right? So this is where a random forest regression algorithm comes into picture. So a random forest regression algorithm works on what is termed as insight of the crowd, right? Wherein it will take these two decision trees. So we can call these two decision trees as, let's say, a multiple decision tree, right? So what a random forest regression algorithm would do is it will take multiple and different regression trees into the picture and chooses the best one by voting. So there is a majority voting scenario that comes into picture, where each tree is made to predict the estimated price of the flat price based on the decision criteria they were made or picked up with. I know this is a relatively harder statement to understand. So what I'm trying to say here from this statement is, so a random forest regression algorithm basically works on majority voting. Now let's say majority of the people, you have the algorithm is working in a way where it has taken these multiple decision trees. Now majority of the people went for, a 2 BHK where they are okay with paying a higher price, right? With amenities in a posh locality. Then the algorithm will show you that 2 BHK as its final class. Now let us understand the formal definition of random forest regression algorithm. A formal definition would be, it is a machine learning technique which is used to solve classification and regression problems by using ensemble learning methodology. Now, what do I mean by ensemble learning methodology? Well, ensemble learning in simple terms is a methodology that combines multiple classifiers for providing solutions to complex problems. It consists of numerous decision trees, and the term forest, right? So I am talking about random forest. So I explained you about random, but what does this forest mean? So the term forest used in this algorithm is either trained through bagging or bootstrap aggregation. So this is the training part. Forest I have already explained you. It basically means numerous decision trees which are packed under one umbrella. That is how you are trying to implement the algorithm. So now I'll be showing you the general structure of a random forest regression tree. So we'll start off by drawing an instance. You can also call it as the input test class. Okay. Input test. Now I'll be drawing 3 different arrows for this input test, because it is going to represent numerous, or you can say multiple decision trees, right? So let me draw one tree. This tree is the parent tree. It has its own children trees as well. These are the children trees. Similarly, you have another tree which has the children trees. And similarly, this whole process goes on till n sample trees. Right. So we'll call this as tree 1. We'll call this as tree 2. And similarly, this is tree n. Now, what we are going to do is, we are going to, since we are drawing the structure of a random forest regression algorithm tree, right? So we have an aspect here called as majority vote. That's what this algorithm does, right? And finally, a final class is selected based on the majority vote, which is here. So what I'm trying to show you guys here is, I'm sorry for my handwriting, so I hope you guys will be able to understand it. So here we have an input test class, right? So your input test class can be anything. I'll be showing you the working of the random forest regression algorithm in the later part of the deck presentation. But here I'm just drawing you the basic structure of how a random forest tree looks like. So here you have an instance which is also known as the input test or the input class. Now since the algorithm in itself talks about taking into account of multiple decision trees or numerous decision trees. So you have one tree here, then you have a tree number 2 here, and similarly you're doing it, or you're drawing individual tree for n sample structures. So you have nth tree here. Now this is always subjective to the kind of question or a problem statement you're posed with. As we know, it is going to solve a complex problem for you. So if flat was a problem, right, then for that you have drawn multiple trees. These three are part of one unified structure algorithm, which is the random forest structure, right? Then comes your aspect of majority voting. So based on majority vote, a final tree is selected, which also becomes a part of your final class. So guys, this is the structure of the random forest. This is how it looks like. So let's see some of the features that this beautiful algorithm consists of. So one of the first pointer is that the accuracy rate of the random forest regression algorithm is very high compared to a decision tree algorithm, right? So for example, consider a scenario where you are trying to apply a decision tree algorithm on your model, and on the other hand, you are applying a random forest regression algorithm, which takes into account multiple or numerous decision trees. So what the result is going to be? Obviously, the accuracy rate of random forest regression algorithm would be high compared to you applying a decision tree algorithm at one place. The next point is that it provides a very constructive way of dealing with missing data. Now, in the regular day of a life of an analyst, it just so happens that she has to deal with large amount of data sets. Sometimes your data set is extremely large and it has a lot of missing values, which gives you nightmares. Now you have an algorithm in place here, which even after your data set is having a lot of missing data, it is not going to affect the accuracy of your entire algorithm or the accuracy of your entire model. And isn't it such a smart thing to do, guys, that today in this world we have an algorithm where your missing data is not going to affect your end accuracy of the model. The next point is that it can produce reasonable predictions without having a need to do hyperparameter tuning. And then it always solves for the overfitting issue in the decision tree. So let's say your decision tree has overfitting, right? Once you apply random forest regression algorithm, it is going to solve for that particular part. And in every one of these trees, a subset of features get selected randomly at the starting node splitting point. Since a random forest regression algorithm consists of a multiple decision trees, and each of these decision trees have their own individual starting node or the parent node, right? So a subset of features get selected randomly at the starting node splitting point. So once the parent nodes get splitted into the child nodes, then those are further getting splitted, right? So guys, this was all about the features of random forest regression algorithm. Now let's move on to our next topic where I'll be talking about the advantages and also listing out the disadvantages of using random forest regression algorithm. So let's have a look at it. So I'll start off by talking about the advantages of this beautiful algorithm. Well, for the first point, it can perform for both classification and regression tasks. So it is basically making your life easy by becoming an algorithm that can come in handy for both kind of tasks. Another point is it is very capable of handling large data sets with high dimensionality, with a high missing value rate, right? So it is very capable of doing that as well. It works well with both kind of values, that is your continuous values and categorical values, which we talk about a lot when we talk about machine learning. Now, if your data has any missing values, it will automatically automate that. So there is no need for you to write, when you check missing values, suppose you have a large data set. So what you do is you write one line of code to check for the missing values, right? And that then you go into the entire stage of doing data pre-processing and EDA. Well, you will still be doing EDA, but once you apply this algorithm directly on your data set or on your model, it will directly automate all these missing values in your entire data. So there is a good side to that as well and bad side to that as well. So let's say what happens is the good side is it is automating all your missing and null values directly without you having the need to write a code for that. The bad side is suppose you had to automate it manually by doing data pre-processing or the EDA steps. Let's say you found out the entire sum of the null values. Then you replace those null values with the mean, or you entirely deleted those null values, right? So you have a set of processes there also. Here the algorithm will take the decision for you. The next part is you don't have to normalize your data, as this follows a very rule-based approach. Now let's see what are the disadvantages of random forest regression. Well, as it builds up numerous trees and combines their output, it requires very high computational power. So it is basically a very expensive algorithm to even, apply it on your data set. So let's say you are into the modeling stage, or you are into this stage where you have to apply an algorithm to look at the accuracy rate of your model. Since it is building up numerous decision trees and then combining all their input to provide one output, which is basically the average of all these input, it requires a very high computational power and very high machine power in general. It also requires a lot of time in training the data, as multiple decision trees are being combined to determine one class, right? Now, due to the ensemble methodology, it has interpretability issues, and it consistently fails to determine the individual significance of each variables. So what I mean by this is, since it is taking into account numerous or multiple decision trees, sometimes it does not determine the value that one decision tree can provide to the output. Let's say there are 2-3 decision trees which are giving you the exact correct output. But again, there would be decision trees which would not be giving you correct output. That is the only reason why you use this algorithm in the first place, right? So this is what it lacks. It loses to understand the significance of each of these variables. Now, although it is used for both classification and regression tasks, it doesn't perform regression tasks that efficiently. Now, let me give you an example for that. Let me give you an example in the programming world itself. You have a programming language called Dart. Now, Dart is one programming language using by which you can develop both Android and iOS applications. But a person who does only iOS application development, who uses Swift programming language, they will have an upper hand compared to a person who's using Dart. Similar is the case when we talk about random forest regression algorithm performing for both classification and regression. It doesn't perform regression tasks that efficiently how it is performing for the classification tasks. Now I'll move on to my next topic, where I'll be comparing random forest regression algorithm with logistic regression. So let's see what are the distinctive differences between the two. Let's say you have a categorical data. Now, what do I mean by categorical data? We all know that, categorical data has a lot of categories. Look at the definition. It's very easy to interpret. So race is one categorical data. You have Asians, you have Latin Americans, you have Americans, you have Asian can be a categorical data in its own, because in Asia you have so many countries. So you have Chinese, you have Japanese, Indian, Pakistanis, etc. Right? So when you have a categorical data, you should always go with random forest regression. However, logistic regression can be also used for dealing with it. But again, at the end of it, it all comes down to the accuracy level that your model is trying to show. So random forest regression is a clear winner there. Now, if you want to interpret results better and easy to grasp, right? So if you do not want your results to have a lot of jargons or your results to be difficult to grasp for a layman or a normal man, sometimes it just so happens that you always go with logistic regression. It is a better choice simply because of its ability to interpret the explanatory variables very easily, right? Now, if your data is imbalanced, if your data in itself, the data set that you have in itself that you have received, or the model that you're trying to create, it has data which is imbalanced, random forest is the best choice because it will automate your data on its own. Remember the last point that I was talking about, guys? Let's say you have areas where you want more speed. You should always opt for logistic regression because, as I had already mentioned, random forest regression generally requires very high computational powers because it takes into account numerous or multiple decision trees. Now here you want more speed and more easy to interpret variables in your data, then you should definitely go for logistic regression. Logistic regressions can also work well with low noise. So let's say you have a data which has low noise, or noise, basically what I mean is the part that you can ignore or the part that which is not required in your data. So if you have a data which is automatically having low noise or areas where you do not need to do a lot of work, you generally go for logistic regression. But here is the catch, and this is where the trick happens. Once you receive a data, let's say you are an analyst who has been assigned a certain task by your team or the vertical that you work for in your company. You have been assigned a data set which has a lot of white noise, which has a lot of high noise. This is where you apply random forest regression algorithm, because this what the algorithm is going to do. I know it is going to be a costly affair. It is going to require a lot of computational power. It is going to require build a lot of multiple decision trees, take those into account, and then give you a final output. But it'll all be worth it because it is going to automate that data. It is going to remove the entire noise and make your job and your life easy. Now I'll move on to the next topic and see the distinctive differences between linear regression and random forest. So let's look at each one of them comprehensively. Let's start with understanding when is a linear regression model better than a random forest. Well, when your data is linear. So as the algorithm itself says, the name itself is linear regression. That is, the relationship, the quantifiable relationship between x and y variable is a linear graph. So if you have a linear data, then it makes a lot of sense to directly apply linear regression. When you see many features with extremely low signal to noise ratio, random forests generally have a hard time modeling linear combinations of many components. So what I'm trying to make you understand from this particular point is, let's say you have a lot of features in your data that have a low signal to noise ratios. So what is going to happen is, when you're going to apply random forest regression algorithm on such a data, it will always have a hard time to model the linear combination, because this is not what is used of doing. Random forest regression algorithms main job is to club in a lot of different decision trees and then give you a final class. So it will definitely not work well when it comes about, or when you talk about a linear data, right? When you're using random forest, it always fits better and outperforms linear regression. Now I'll explain you a point where linear regression is not able to perform. Let's say the relationship in your data is not linear. The relationship that you're trying to quantify between two variables, or let's say your data is not perfectly linear. Then these are the cases where a random forest will obviously outperform, or will obviously come out as a clear winner. So there are very few cases where a linear regression performs better than a random forest, and those few cases are low signal to noise ratio, or when your data is linear. In ideal world, you would never get a data which is perfectly linear. So it is always better to make use of random forest regression algorithm. Now you can provide categorical features and it will partition the data and make it fit suitable, right? So what happens is, when we talk about a random forest regression algorithm, it works very well with categorical values or categorical features, right? So what it does it will basically partition the data and make it fit suitable. That is, when you're trying to predict the data, when you're trying to assess that predicted data by using certain tests, it will make it extremely well suited to that particular part. So what I'm trying to explain you guys is that there are only two ways, or there are only two areas of concern, not even concern, there are only two areas where linear regression performs slightly better than a random forest regression algorithm. One, the first point being, or the first way being, when you have a data which is extremely linear. And the second point is when you have an extremely low signal to noise ratio. So in general or ideal, you can make use of random forest regression algorithm, but the accuracy that you're expecting, you would not get that. So it's always wise to use linear regression. But apart from that, if you have cases where you have different decision trees, if you have cases where you have a high signal to noise ratios, then you always have to use random forest regression algorithm, or if you have cases where your data has a lot of missing values. So this was all about the differences between linear regression and random forest. Now I'll move on to the next topic, which basically talks about random forest regression algorithm. Do not worry, I have already spoken about what is random forest regression algorithm, why do we use it, and the overview of it. Basically, in this part, I'm going to talk about how does this beautiful algorithm work. Well, the random forest regression algorithm follows a very straightforward and a simple approach. Firstly, it is going to build n decision tree regressors. What do I mean by n decision regressors? Basically, you provide the number of decision trees that you want to deal with. It can be 10, 100, and that's the reason why I have put n there, which is also the formal definition. So the number of regressors n is essentially used as a default here. It is also called as n estimators. So trees that are being built, they follow a specified hyperparameter. Example, maximum depth of the node. So let's say you have a parent node. Let's say, for example, you have multiple decision trees, and each of these decision trees have their own significant value or individual value. All of them would have their own parent node and children node, right? So we'll understand what is the depth of the entire node or how long the tree can grow, right? The second and the most important point is average prediction through estimators. So every individual decision tree regression predicts one number as the output from a set of given inputs. For example, and I'll be showing you this in the form of an example, in the form of a diagram in the next slide itself. So do not worry, guys. So what do I mean here is each of these decision trees that are part of the test class or the input class, they will produce their own output, right, from the set of given inputs. Now this algorithm, what it is going to do, it is going to take the average of those predictions as its final output. So as I have already mentioned, the diagram is in the next slide. So in the next slide here, I'm going to draw and the same thing. So what I did was, when I started the presentation, I gave you guys an example of, suppose you want to buy a flat or an apartment. Let's imagine a situation. Let's build on that example again. Now I have a flat. So my test input is a flat, right? And this flat basically has 3 arrows. So my first tree, let's say one of my trees or the first tree is a 2 BHK flat, which has its own parent nodes. And again, I have a different tree class, right? And this is the nth tree, which is again being splitted into different child nodes. Now let's say this is a 2 BHK. This is again a 2 BHK, and let's say this is a 3 BHK. Now when I'm trying to combine, which is the next step, that is when I'm trying to do a majority vote, right? Because a part of this algorithm, what it does is it basically takes out the average of the predicted inputs, right? So majority voting, this is one part, which is again attached to the entire part. And let's say a lot of people voted for 2 BHK. So when you're choosing the flat, here your flat is your test input. Here your flat is your input, right? Then the flat has again multiple individual decision tree. So if you remember, I started this presentation by showing you how you're building one decision tree where you had to look for a flat, and while you're looking for a flat, you went for a posh locality. If it's available, what is the cost? If it's not available, what is the cost? What are the amenities? Which was one decision tree. And then I built another decision tree on the top of that, which came from a different perspective. Here what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to involve all these individual decision tree under one umbrella cap, which is flat, that acts as your input class here. Now let's say the majority voting, when you did the average of these predictions, it came out to be as 2 BHK. Here, this 2 BHK is basically your final class, And this is also the part of the main diagram. So guys, this is how your random forest regression works. So what the random forest regression does is it merges the output of all these individual decision trees. So you had this one individual decision tree, then again, right? And this went all till the nth tree. So what it is doing is it is merging the output of all these individual decision tree to predict one final class. And in the final class, you had 2 BHK, which came out as a clear winner, right? So it is going to average out the prediction. And that is how this random forest regression works. Now I'll move on to the next topic where I'll be talking about applications. Hold up, guys. When I say applications, what I really mean is I'm going to talk about the areas where you actually see random forest regression algorithm being applied on a day-to-day basis. Now, what are these areas? Or you can say the examples, right? So random forest is basically used in banking sector on a very large scale to understand the credit worthiness of a loan applicant. Now, let's say you are an analyst who's working at a bank. Let's say the name of the bank is XYZ. And in your bank, your manager has given you the task to analyze how many applicants the bank can roll out their new marketing feature of, loans. So the first thing that you're going to do, and most of the times what you're going to do, is apply a random forest regression algorithm on the entire banking data set or the data that you're trying to analyze to segregate the people who are regular defaulters from the people who have paid loan on time and who have had a good CIBIL score. The next point is healthcare professionals make use of their versatile algorithm to detect and diagnose patients by assessing their previous medical history. Now, as we all know that machine learning has been doing strides in the entire world, and healthcare industry is something that it has touched at a very deep level. You see news going around on a day-to-day basis where, they're talking about curing cancer from machine learning or, detecting cancer at a very early stage using machine learning techniques. So how this algorithm comes into play in healthcare is that since it's a versatile algorithm, a healthcare professional or healthcare analyst, what they do is they are diagnosing their patients by using this algorithm by assessing their previous medical history. Now, for example, if I'm someone who has had a medical history of asthma or breathing problem, then worry not, I do not have to manually go to a doctor to understand my ailments. You can apply a random forest regression algorithm on my data, which is available to that particular healthcare, or to that particular hospital. And then they can understand from my previous medical history that what all diseases I'm most likely to have. In stock markets also, it is used widely by financial analysts to identify the potential stocks to invest in. Most of the times, the financial analyst's job is to present a report to their end clients. And these reports generally consist of two kinds of stock: your potential stock, which you can invest in long term, or the stocks that you can invest on a day-to-day basis, which is your day trading. So this algorithm plays a very important part when the financial analysts are trying to do their task efficiently. The next point is e-commerce giants. Guys, all of us have used Amazon or Flipkart at some or the other time. We also continue to do so. So all these e-commerce giants use this algorithm to understand and predict the customer behavior. So whenever we talk about, understanding customer behavior, let's say you are someone who buys a lot of electronic products. So whenever you will open the application itself will suggest you to buy. Customer who bought, let's say, an iPhone also bought the iPhone charger or, other products related to that together. How does that happen? Well, it happens due to random forest regression algorithm. What these analysts at these companies do is they apply these algorithm and then provide or segregate these customers into different clusters. Now, if I am someone who is very keen about knowing about technology or product, and I always buy product or technology related books, then it's most likely it is going to happen that whenever I'm going to open the application will recommend me books related to that or the new books that has come into the collection, right? So it has understood my behavior. What I mean by behavior is it has understood my buying pattern. It has understood my interest. And that basically comes by applying random forest regression algorithm. Now, throughout the course of this entire presentation, I spoke about random forest regression algorithm. But where is the practical part? How am I gonna implement it practically? For that, I'll move on to the next topic where I'll be talking about random forest regression machine learning. Well, not exactly talking. Here I'll be showing you how do we apply this particular algorithm on a live data set, right? So let me move on to Google Colab. So as you can see, guys, I've already opened Google Colab. Now, one thing we always have to remember that whenever we are doing any task which is remotely or even directly related to analysis, data science, machine learning, there are two packages which goes without saying. You have to import pandas and numpy. Since I'm writing this code in Google Colab, when I run this code, I have to choose the file, and my file is just stayed here. The file, what I mean by file is the data set. So here is the data set. Once I've chosen my data set, I'm running this code, right? Then I'll move on to the next part. Now, I have the data set already. I have to convert this data set into a CSV format. So for people who use Anaconda or Jupyter, they can directly convert it. But since I'm showing it on Google Colab, you need to write these two lines of code before moving forward, right? So I'm importing the data set into the CSV file and then printing it, right? So now the data set has been imported to the CSV file. Now I want to look at the first 10 rows of the column, right? So that's the reason why I have written this line of code, that is data.head. And here I'm storing this CSV file into a new variable, and the name of my variable is data. So I'm going to call this. And once I call it, you can see for the data set here, guys. So you have three columns, which are position, level, and salary. And the position increases, right? So at the 0th position, you have a business analyst who is also happens to be at level 1, who has a certain salary, which is 45,000. And as you move up in the hierarchy, you go to the last level, that is CEO, which has a very high salary. Now, as a part of the next step, because now we are getting into the data processing part, which is also called as data pre-processing. In data pre-processing, the first step that you do once you have your data set stored as a form of a CSV file is check for null values. And for this, I'm going to run this part of code. So as you can see, in all these three columns, we do not have null values. Lucky day, isn't it? Now we'll move on to the next part. Here, what we are going to do is filter our data. Now, what do I mean by filter by data? I'm going to make use of this functionality iloc based on the value. So I'm going to provide the first column to the X variable and the entire second column to the Y variable. Let me quickly run this code. Yes, this code runs perfectly. And now I'm going to split this data set into train and test set. How am I going to do that? For that, I have to import the package which is relatable to this part. So for that, I have written this line of code, which is from sklearn.model_selection import train and test split. That is train_test_split. For that, I have also named my variables as xtrain, xtest, ytrain, and ytest. And then I'm calling or invoking this function, the package that I've called. And here I'm giving my test size as 0.3. So you have 70% of the training data and 30% on the test data, right? And I'm giving my random state as 0. Moving on to the next part, what I'm going to do is we are going to train our random forest regression model on this entire data set. So this position salary data set, we are going to train our algorithm and then see the result and assess our results, right? For that, what I'm going to do is I have imported random forest regressor. So by using this line of code, that is from sklearn.ensemble import random forest regressor, it is going to import that particular package. Then I'm creating a new variable, which is called model, under which I'm calling this package random forest regressor. And here, as I spoke about n estimator before also, so firstly, I'm trying to build my model. Let's say I want to build it on 10 trees, right? For that, I have given n estimators as the size as 10 and the random state as 0. Then I'll directly write this code model.fit on xtrain and ytrain. As you can see, I have written here, training set basically contains known output from which your model learns off. Whereas the test set here then tests the model's prediction based on what it learned from the training set. I hope you guys are clear until this step. So let me run this piece of code. It runs perfectly without any errors. Now, once we are done with the first 3 steps, right? So we first imported the data set. We did one step of data pre-processing since it's our lucky day today. So the data set does not consist of any kind of null values. And then we moved on and we splitted the data set into train and test. Once we were done with that step, we moved on and then we tried doing or applying or training our data set onto the random forest regression model on the entire data set. With this step, we are now moving forward. Now we have trained the model, right? Now I want to assess it. Like, okay, what is the result of this training? How would you find out that the training that you have done is accurate? For that, we move on to the next step where we are trying to predict our test result. So for that, I have written ypredict, that is ypred. I have named a new variable and I'm trying to predict xtest, right? So as you can see, it forms an array. Now our test result has been predicted. But who is going to tell us that the test result that you see right now, is it even correct or not? What is the accuracy rate of it? If you show it to a data scientist or a machine learning engineer or an analyst for that matter, they would ask you this very first question: what is the accuracy of your model? For that, we need to assess our test result. And in order to assess our test result, we make use of the R squared test. Well, R squared test is nothing but it tells you how well your model has fitted data by comparing it to the average line. So I'm sorry for the spelling here, guys. Let me quickly. Okay, so this is the part. Here the spelling is a bit wrong. Let me quickly fix it, right? Comparing it to the average. So I just missed an E here, right? Right. So that is why you're doing R squared test. So the R squared test basically tells you that in statistics or in machine learning, we use R squared test to understand how well your model has fitted to the original or the desired value. Okay. So if your R squared test value is near to 1, then they say that your model has fitted really well. If it is very far away from the value 1, then they say that, your model has some discrepancies, or maybe you did not do the data pre-processing steps correctly, or you probably missed out in the EDA part. That is generally the know-how of how you do this. Moving on to the next step, what I do is I need to import the R squared, right? How do I do that? So for that, I'll write this line of code. From sklearn.matrix, import R square score _score. And then I'm directly going to invoke this particular package on our Y test and Y predicted. As you can see for yourself, we have a score of 0.82. Rounding it off, you have a score of around 82.7%, which approximately tells you that we have achieved a R squared score of approximately 83%, which further implies that our model performs well because your score is very closer to 1. Right. And if this score would have been somewhere around 50% or 60%, then that would have been a matter for concern for you as an analyst or a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. Now, this was all about building and doing random forest regression on 10 trees. What if I have 100 trees? How am I going to approach that problem? For that also, I have written this line of code here. So I'm now going to build a model for 100 trees. What I'm going to change? Nothing exactly. So in the n estimators part, previously I had given 10 trees. So here now I'll give 100 trees. Random state is going to be 0 and all the other part of the code will follow the same procedure. And then I'm going to test our result, right? So now doing it on Y predicted value, I receive this array. And finally, I'm going to assess this result. Let's see what is the accuracy rate when we are going to build 100 trees. Well, as you can see, guys, it's a whopping 94.9%, which means your approximated result shows you an accuracy rate of 95%, which tells you that your model has performed extremely well when you're trying to do random forest regression on the whole data set. So guys, this was all about the coding part, where I started off by importing the necessary packages, then I imported the data set. Then after that, after doing one line of data pre-processing step, after checking for the null value, which we found, luckily we did not find any. Then I filtered the data, splitted the entire data into train and test set. We moved on and then we did random forest regression model on the whole data set by building on using 2 use cases. First, we built on 10 trees, as you can see for yourself here. Then we moved on and built for 100 trees. So for the 10 trees, we had an accuracy percentage of 83%. When we started building for 100 trees, we got an accuracy percentage of 95%. Now guys, with the hands-on part ending, we have almost reached to the end of this presentation. Now, in the summary part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be summarizing the entire pointers and the important things that I spoke about during the course of this entire presentation. So in this presentation, we learned about random forest regression. We started with the how and why of it and covered what exactly is this beautiful algorithm. We also did comparison with other algorithms like linear regression and logistic regression and understood why this algorithm is unique and stands out whenever we are faced with some sort of a complex problem, whenever we are faced with problems which are different, right? And finally, I did a coding walkthrough using a data set. Thank you.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any new update or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video for any query or suggestions and I will respond to your comments.